Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Documentary Club. I'm Jeff Jones, and with me today, as always, is Jack. Jack, good buddy, old pal. We got one for today. You kind of selected this one, so I'll toss it over to you, and you can tell us all about Take Care of Maya, now streaming on Netflix.
Well, thanks, and hello to you and everyone that's tuned in to talk about this case. And it's this one was really polarizing for me, I guess, because I have many children, but and one that got really sick. But it it goes down this journey, this path of Maya. It's actually the Kowalskis, the family. They had two kids, a daughter and a son. And when Maya was, I think, 9 or 10 years old, I can't remember the exact age. Nonetheless, she started getting sick. She had some breathing problems. She had some pain, some pretty significant pain, some lesions, and other symptoms that began to show up. And so, of course, they took her to the doctor, and no one could figure out what was going on. No one. Till she finally gets to this one doctor, and he says, "This is what it is. I've seen it before, and this is what you need to do," which ultimately they tried the treatment's ketamine. Low dose ketamine typically worked for a lot of patients, but for some it didn't. And in that situation, they found that a what's called a high dose ketamine induced coma, it's like a 5 day coma. They've introduced high doses of ketamine into the body. Uh, they saw good results from that. But that treatment's not available in the United States, only in Mexico. So they ended up doing that, and it worked. For a year, she was basically symptom free. She was able to go back to school. She gained weight uh, and basically lived a pretty normal life. But about a year later, she relapsed. The dad, Jack, is a retired fireman. Mom was a nurse. She was at work, but when Maya relapsed, she was in significant pain, screaming pain. And so he calls his wife, and he's like, I've got to take her to the hospital ER. She's something bad, you know." So he ends up taking her to the emergency room at Johns Hopkins University in Florida, and I can't remember whatever city it is. Um, and that's where the nightmare really begins, is right there, because from this point on, there's problems, like significant problems, and that's what this is all about. The results of what happened with the actions of people involved in her care, the legal system, how that worked out, and of course the interactions of the family. And it went down a really terrible, terrible result. Terrible
Yeah,
result.
which we will unfold as we get to it. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, it's one of those nightmare scenarios. My first take is that we're gonna see it's like the yellow tape. It's like the bureaucracy. It's like, but the rule says this. Well, like, use your emotions in your heart. You don't have to. You know what I mean? Like, but the rule says this, and we have to follow this rule. And then there's you know dealing with healthcare workers, and healthcare workers are people too, and they suffer from mental illness too, and they make mistakes, and they are very sure of themselves. So there's some of that drama that's unfolding. This one's really got it from a lot of angles, so you guys are definitely in for one this week, let me tell you
Yeah,
that.
and interactions with certain government agencies as well. This is another problem, and it's not just as we go forward through this documentary. We found out it's not just happening in this one location. There's people from across the country that are in this, at least to some degree, talking about their experiences that happened to them.
Okay, so let's check out the introduction for Take Care of Maya, and we'll basically we hear the discussion about how parents have no rights,
Yep.
and that kind of sets the tone about where we are in this one.
This is one of the most screwed up parts of the United States system. Parents have no right. I know that it would have been kinder for them to shoot you than to take our child away.
Why, for so many years, no one has changed this? This is screwed up.
I'm going to be frank, I'm appalled that what this child has had to go through.
When you get your child back, you leave that hospital and you never, ever go back.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I swear.
I can't help it. I'm fighting for my child.
You have the audacity to ask me why I'm afraid of hospitals?
I'm sure you will see me pretty soon.
Killer introduction right there, Jack.
Brutal. Just brutal. Because, you know, as time moves forward, you know, you could see that Maya that was there in a deposition. It's just brutal. And the one talking about parents have no rights, and it's really true. And it becomes a system of you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent, which that's not what our system, it's not how it's set up. This is a draconian kind of mindset. And now, look, I get it in some situations where there's real problems within a family, dysfunctional. You know, there was none of that in this.
Right.
It really comes more from. I mean, both parents were certainly concerned, but Maya's mother was. She was a bear. I won't call rabid, but she was not going to take any shit from anyone. And she felt like she could defeat the system, I think, mindset.
Yeah.
Or at least she's, you know, you're going to listen to me. This is my child. You're not just going to blow me off.
Once she realized that it was an adversarial type relationship, then she's going to take it right to the line as far as she can go every time because it's about her kid.
Yeah.
And this is just from my point of view, not being a doctor, not understanding, you know, medical law, right? I'm just a layman, just a guy, English teacher. So from my point of view is if you have this, you know, procedure done in Mexico and the doctor who's prescribed you this stuff is from Mexico, then in a way you really do need to stay out of the American hospital system. And I think they might not follow the same theory of the ketamine because we don't allow that therapy. We see that as an improper treatment of a minor. And then if it's deemed by a court that you've given, and then the parents willfully know this, then it really becomes a tough thing. And so the first issue, I think this case starts with them getting the procedure in Mexico. So I think you have to remember that when you cross back into the US, that treatment is not, I don't know, valid is the right word or legal. I don't know, but
it's not their accepted practice.
Right.
But it's really worse than that. And we'll get more into it, but this hospital didn't even accept the diagnosis.
Right.
Yet
So at that point, don't you, like, if you're the parent, you try to get them out because they're not accepting the diagnosis that we know had worked, right?
Right.
Or they thought they had worked. There's a lot of questions in this documentary. It's not so black and white. It's not so clear all the time who is in the wrong. That's all I'm going to say.
There's definitely a lot of wrong. But Beata, that's Maya's mother, what we found out towards the end of the documentary, I think I'm safe in going ahead and saying this, she documented everything. Every interaction that she had was written down in some way or another. Everything. So that played a huge role, and we don't see most of this. We were not privy to. They don't dive in really deep into it into the documentary. But this is first time I watched this, I'm like, wait, what? And it made more sense to me at that point in time because the mom, I don't want to sound like an ass. She was clearly, to me, she she pushed too hard at times when she should have said, look, I get what you're saying. I do. I understand it. These are the things that we've already done. I mean, because, at that point in time, we're going to get to it here in a minute. They think that, that mom is abusing her. From that perspective, she's like, look, I get what you're saying. There's nothing going on. These are the things that we've already done. It didn't work. All we want is what's best for Maya that will help her and certainly take at least a lot of her pain away, but make it where she can live her life. I don't know. Maybe introduce Jack Kowalski because he plays a key figure at 149.
We build a family with love, honesty, trust. You do everything for them. That's what Beata and I did. But there's nothing that could prepare me for what I went through with my family. I started falling in love with Beata right away. She had something special about her. She was magic, She put herself through college and she became a nurse. Beata wanted nothing more than to have her own child. Beata always made sure that Maya had the best of the best.
So far, I mean, really feels just like normal family, just making it, a lot of times we say, oh, immigrant family, it's an interesting story. We're all immigrant families here if you go back to our families long enough. So this is an American story is like any.
Yep.
And so she got what she wanted. She, I kind of had this thought, and maybe it's just a thought. Okay. Don't lynch me. They said that she had problems getting pregnant. Now I wonder if it's possible that maybe she was in some sort of treatment for that. And
yeah, they don't go into it.
Could that have something to do with my symptoms? I don't know. I don't know anything.
It's just an idea. Okay. I thought the same thing. Yeah. It's not really too far out there to think that.
Maya gets sick in 2015. And I think we really need to see that part coming up here just in a second.
I'd like to get an idea of what type of symptoms you had back then. Do you recall?
I remember I was in a great deal of pain and I wasn't able to move as efficiently anymore.
It all started with some breathing problems. Her skin felt like it was on fire. Her legs were turning in.
You can do it. You can do it. I can't take it. I can't take it.
I mean, I don't think anything really more needs to be said about being a parent in that situation. I'm not a parent, Jack. You can pipe in here, but I can imagine your child is like, I can't take it. I can't take it. The pain. It's got to be excruciating to deal.
It is. It is.
That.
It gives you that of lack of control is when you're strapped in an airplane. You have, once the door closes, you're done. You have zero, and the cockpit door's closes. Unless you have a bazooka, you have zero control. You're done.
Beata really does her research, and her name almost looks like Beta to me, but she's far from a beta mom.
I know, she's definitely an alpha.
Yeah, Beata finds Dr. Kirkpatrick, and I think it's important to play this clip. I think you really want to understand what happened in the medical end of it. So let's watch this clip about her finding Dr. Kirkpatrick.
Okay, Maya, is it okay if we can use this video to educate other children?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You see how her legs are turning in? We call that dystonia. Okay. And try to wiggle your toes as best you can. Okay, can you try that?
Man, I couldn't imagine my child having this much. Can't even wiggle your toes. And you were 4 months ago, you were running and playing.
You get into that situation where you want to take that away from your kid and just wear that belt yourself, but you can't.
All right, let's watch more about Dr. Kirkpatrick and his solution or his potential treatment.
Yep.
It was clear and simple CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome. Patients describe it primarily as a burning sensation.
And many of those suffering were told the problem was psychological and imagined.
Imagine that they tell your kid, it's in your head.
Yeah, you're just
It's just imagined pain. It's not real pain.
You're just making shit up, kid. Quit it.
You remember in the beginning of this documentary, Maya's like, "How dare you ask me why I'm uncomfortable to go to a hospital?"
Well,
You know what I mean? And
it gets a whole lot worse though.
Oh, it gets a whole lot worse, but you can already see it. Like, I go to the hospital and you tell me I'm full of horse manure, that my symptoms aren't real. I'm losing a lot of faith in you. And no wonder why I go to Mexico for my treatment. You know what I mean?
And we know what the best therapy is for it. It's called ketamine.
It's called ketamine. Ketamine is also a street drug that people abuse. And so I think ketamine has this negative connotation, right? I think there have been like celebrities and stuff that have overdosed and died on ketamine. It can be really dangerous when not administered properly.
That's right. It has to be monitored. You have to be really careful with it. But by all accounts, the family was. They were very aware of the issues with it. And her being a nurse, I'm sure she was well aware of it.
Absolutely. So then in the story, like they tried ketamine and the low dose didn't help. And then they said that Kirkpatrick wanted to do a ketamine induced coma.
Yes.
But that treatment was only available in Mexico.
That's right.
And I think there's an important point when we talk about Mexico here, because it's not just this treatment. We know that stem cells work.
Yes, absolutely.
And our country does not do stem cells.
No.
But you can go to Mexico and you can get that injected into your knee and your knee will improve.
And Europe, places in Europe.
In Europe and other places, right. So just because it's like you're going to Mexico, so it's shady and it's right. There's no regulation. I don't think that's exactly the truth. I think maybe they have lighter, they're more willing to try experimental treatments. They don't have the tight regulations that we do, but I don't think that people should be like, oh, this guy's a total
whack
job because he has to go to Mexico to do it. Because I think
Correct.
My example of the stem cells is a perfect example why.
Yeah.
Here, I just think it's important to point out, just because they're going to Mexico doesn't mean that this is some wild
backroom alley. Down the poorly lit institution where you have to go. It's not like that.
It's not Juarez. Okay. Here we go. Maya coming out of her coma.
The coma worked. The ketamine helped me tremendously with my pain.
Headaches are a lot better.
Yep.
They're minor now.
Right.
Her pain in the legs is better.
Right.
We couldn't afford to keep up with Dr. Kirkpatrick's treatments. He recommended his colleague and prescribed low dosages of ketamine for Maya.
So this is another important point in the plot, that now you're being put onto another doctor, not the original physician.
This may have been that Kirkpatrick wasn't in their network of doctors.
Sure.
So
yeah. I'm just saying it's important to note that he's no longer the primary care.
Correct.
And that builds problems, I think, too.
They started Maya and low dose ketamine, but that wasn't working.
We do not feel that we were making any effect to Maya's status.
Beata knew that low dosage wouldn't do it.
In fact, we began questioning the diagnosis of complex generalized pain syndrome.
But they didn't listen.
Things started to become belligerent.
We were told if we plan on trying to leave, that security would be called.
That's where I started feeling unsafe about Maya.
Okay, now this is kind of where I have a problem.
Okay.
Hey, we were on a treatment. We tried low doses of ketamine. It didn't work. Read the chart. Read the chart.
Yep.
We tried that. It didn't work. The only thing that worked was a high dose, this coma thing. So thank you. I appreciate the help that you've done, but we're going to take Maya to another hospital.
Yep. Your ship's not working.
End of story.
Right.
At this point in the story, like he said, we started to question the diagnosis.
Correct.
Okay, so you question the diagnosis, but you don't have a prognosis either.
That's right.
But you're not going to let these people. So my conspiratorial problem in this goes, this patient, this is going to sound horrible, but this patient is going to generate a lot of money for the hospital. We can't let her release.
Well, you're not wrong. Because at the end of the day, except for a few hospitals that are around the country and the world, all hospitals are for profit. Don't
That's
let
right.
anyone ever tell you else.
This is a for-profit hospital that you're
High
making
dollar
a
business.
profit off of me. You're making money off of me. Capital
That's right.
gains off of me.
Off of my misery.
And I can't tell you that no, you know what? On second thought, I want to go to another hospital. No, you can't. We'll arrest you.
Right.
Are you out of your minds?
This is where the wheels
Whether
really
they're
come
right
off the
or
wagon.
wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether they're right
Yeah.
or wrong. Maybe John Hopkins University Hospital would have found the better alternative avenue. Maybe they had that technology. Maybe they knew of another method. But to take Maya hostage and to not do what she wants to do and what the parents want to do is outrageous.
And given our constitutional rights, it's completely draconian to me. Completely.
And it's some serious bullshit.
Ramped up to level 10, man. You can't turn the dial past the 100% part, I guess, breaking the meter. And I probably should go ahead and let a little bit of the cat out of the bag. Given where we're at, it's going to come up later, I think, if we include the clip. But here's the thing: they're saying that they don't really believe the diagnosis. But what did Johns Hopkins University bill their insurance for? It was for the original freaking diagnosis that was found out later in the civil end of it. They were billing the insurance for Dr. Kirkpatrick's original diagnosis. They did it for months.
Your diagnosis is wrong. We are the ones who have the knowledge, and you're abusing it. That's wrong. That's a wrong diagnosis. Wrong diagnosis. You get the bill, and that's the diagnosis that they put on the bill. The one that they told you was wrong. Wrong, until it's time to bill you. And so, you know, like that comment that I said before, we don't want to let this high-profile patient off of our premises.
Right.
We want the insurance money. We want this as a profit.
Hundreds and thousands, potentially thousands of dollars per day.
Plus we can write papers on it and generate science on it and get more donations to the hospital because look at this case that we solved. Like, I've seen House. I've seen that show. I understand how it works.
Love House.
So where does that put us on this documentary, Jack?
Well, I think we definitely need to you need to touch a little bit on 2448 because this is where the hospital's path is leading. They've got Maya, and now they're questioning, is she being abused? So I think a little bit of the next clip, 2448, is appropriate.
There were multiple physicians who had concerns for Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Munchausen by proxy is a form of child abuse, and that pattern of behavior causes harm to the child. There was ample evidence to support a diagnosis of medical child abuse.
Appeared most likely. You had nothing. She had nothing to back that up. Nothing. I'm not saying this played a part, but I think there's the potential that it could have.
Let's go. What is it? I want to hear it.
Well, the other was an immigrant. And some people view that negatively, period.
Well, and that she doesn't know, right? She couldn't know, right? She's an immigrant from Poland. She wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Right? Like there's just some,
she just seemed like a mom that she's just fighting for her kid.
She was a nurse. She was trained in some of this.
That's right. But because I'm sure because of her upbringing, what she was around, what she was told.
Right.
she had that fight spirit inside of her, her detriment in some situations that she thought she was just going to win that argument every time. But then you have
Yeah.
this somebody like this Dr. Sally Smith that really have the connections to yank your chain.
But wasn't it found out that this is oftentimes misappropriated, misidentified, Munchausen by proxy, that there have been instances of people who obviously are not abusing their kid, but it gets into it a little bit later in the documentary, but
oh yeah. Yeah, they've made horrible mistakes.
this lady
Horrible
made a bunch of, yeah. So I think, I think maybe some race could have played a part in it. I also think that
I don't know that. I'm
I
not
go
trying to be.
right, no, for sure, absolutely, I understand.
I just wanted to mention it. I didn't really want to play that up, but I'm just thinking to myself, I know how people are. I'm not that way. I'm just like, if you are respectful to me, I'm going to be respectful back. Even if you're, even if you come off maybe a little angry, as long as you're not attacking me or making threats, we can probably have a conversation. And it doesn't seem like Beata did that. She was just trying to protect Maya and get her pain taken away.
Let's go back to what I said earlier in this video, and that is when they went to Mexico and got this treatment done that's not an approved treatment in the US.
Yep.
A US doctor from their boxes, checking boxes, would see that as an improper treatment. Because if you're asking them their opinion, well, it's not legal in the States, so it must be improper. And then, oh, you went to a bunch of different places and you didn't like the results, so you went shopping for a doctor that would do what you wanted to do. And I can see how they build a case like that. But
well, they actually did. I think in some of the notes and whatever we see, doctor shopping was written down.
Right.
Which I guess if you can view it, you kind of view this one way from a drug addict standpoint. We know that happens, doctor shopping. Right. But that's not what she was doing. She was trying to find a doctor to find out what the hell's going on.
The same would be true as if you went through 5 doctors and they didn't have an answer for you. You're going to go to the 6th. You're going to go to the 7th. You're going to go to the 8th. Yeah, because nothing is working and you're determined. So, like, I can see how they're trying to interpret that another way to make it look like she was doctor shopping when she wasn't.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly
right. I will be as honest as I can about Beata, about like how I read. I think she's for me, a little aggressive in her approach. Yep. But then again, I've never been in her situation before. I might be worse. I might be flying off the handle more frequently than she did. So I really can't say.
Yeah, with doctors, you talked about the money end, and I'm going to share just a really brief little clip that happened in my life. And I say clip, it's a memory. My dad had open heart surgery back in 1997. He had to. He didn't want to do it, but that he had to have it, or he was definitely going to die. So he had it done. He gets home, and he really struggled. I mean, he really struggled. 6 weeks, 7 weeks after his open heart surgery, he had a massive stroke. Massive. It really destroyed his brain. So, of course, he's in the intensive care, and there was literally nothing they could do. Nothing. And, we talked to, me and my mom talked to many doctors, hospitals, and it's a really trusted hospital in East Tennessee when this happened. And, ultimately, we were heading down that road of pulling the plug because he was on life support, Anyway, about the 4th or 5th day that Dad was in this condition in the ICU, me and my mom were in the waiting room, just waiting to go in to see him. We always went in and talked to him regardless, It's my dad, I was really close with my dad. This doctor, he said he needed to talk to us, and so we go into this room, and he says, "Look, there's been some problems because of circulation. His left leg, or whichever leg it was, I can't remember now. Maybe it's his right leg. You know, the poor circulation. It looks like, you know, it's you know, we're going to need to remove it. I'm like, why? Well, you know, it's going to cause some problem. I said, has anything changed that has changed the diagnosis of where he's at now? You're going to be able to help his brain. He's on life support now. Is removing his leg going to change any of that? Well, no, but you know, this other problem could develop. I'm like him dying, like he's doing right now. Well, I don't, and I'm like, look, you need to get the fuck away from me, and my mom, because what you're saying is you want to do an expensive amputation to my dad that he doesn't need. He's going to die anyway. We've accepted that. It's just a point of when we're going to actually pull the plug out and make that decision. I was furious, dude. I was furious. It was all I could do not to hit him in the mouth.
You know, unfortunately, this is the system that we live in a for-profit system.
Yep.
Where people are going to try to take advantage of you the same way when you go to the used car dealership, they try to take advantage of you because it's for profit, right?
Exactly. You know, and I don't know that the guy had necessarily ill intent in what he was saying.
It could have just been like, this is what we recommend. We don't know.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it, you know, but there might not have been, but that's the gearing of the hospital. Do you see what I'm saying?
Correct.
That's their gearing.
That's
is
right.
to always
That's
be
right.
like, try to sell him the surgery, get him in surgery, fix him up as best we can. And guess what? We're in this to make a profit.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
so
everybody, I mean, I know that there's a lot of caring people in these hospital, nurses. Oh my God, I've met so many wonderful people that I can never even do a tenth of what they endure. And it can't all be about the money for what they have to go through. It can't. The human connection, it just can't. The empathy. So I salute the nurses and most doctors. But then again, if anybody ever forgets that the hospital is not about profit, you're just kidding yourself. They are. It's all about the profit.
I do believe that your story about your father is not unique, though. I really don't think that's a unique story. I think that
I'm sure
that happens, and that's why hospitals and medical sector make record profits every year.
Yep.
And squeeze the middle class dry with their insurance premiums. And oh my God, Jeff, wake up! We got a documentary to get to. All right, next clip.
It's an easy road for us to jump in because it's so prevalent in our society, right? Healthcare, it's a huge thing for everyone. But yeah, I agree. We got to make one. But
so they get a lawyer. You know, Dad's told he had to leave, and they end up getting a lawyer. I don't think we need to play that clip.
Yeah. I mean, it's just important to understand at this point, the state has stepped in. They're taking custody of Maya. They're stripping the parents of Maya. Dad's told to leave, get out. Yeah, we need to talk about this. Dr. Sally Smith, she's the one that wrote this report. As soon as Dr. Kirkpatrick, I can just talk about it. Dr. Kirkpatrick heard about what was going on, and he calls this Dr. Sally Smith and says, look, I have all the documentation of Maya's case. She didn't include any of that stuff to this report she sent to the court. None of it. That's in the deposition.
This is what the diagnosis is. If you want to see the objective evidence, I got it for you. Does she include that in the report? No.
If that's what he said, hey, I provided her with the documentation of a proven method that was working, and you disregarded that. You know, it's like when a prosecutor hides the evidence, right?
Yep, that's right.
But we're not in a court of law yet. We're just two private entities interacting with each other, right? This is not, a prosecution. It's just, so it's, did you do the right thing? And Sally, what's her name? Sally Smith?
Dr. Sally Smith.
You got some splaining to do, Sally Smith.
Yep.
And it would not only be a catastrophic outcome for the child, it would be a permanent injury to the whole family.
We'll acknowledge that investigation and medical evaluation for child abuse and neglect may cause some distress to a family.
Well, it sounds to me like now hearing that he has given an affidavit to that lawyer.
Certainly does, because, and then her response was, well, child abuse is stressful to the family too. That's not an answer. She didn't answer the question. She very much, I don't know the word. I wish I knew the lawyerese term. When she just jellyfish commented her way through.
She deflected it. She completely deflected.
We're trying to find the best outcome for the patient, right? Yep. And when you can see people deflecting away from that, that's when you can smell something's up. That's how I read it. That's how I'm going to always read it, is that whoever goes for the patient care, the patient outcome, whoever seems to focus on that one is going to win it out always for me in these situations.
Yep. I agree.
And I just don't see that from her at all. It's not about, it was about being right and being, this is the law and I can do it because
I have the power.
There was a blow up.
They're going to hold this against you. Don't talk about pain meds. You're going to cause more problems. Don't do this shit.
Stop yelling in front.
You don't get it. They're going to hold it against you.
You know, and Jack admits he lost his temper, and I can see that he understands that he was wrong about that. But I think it just demonstrates how clearly how much this is already messing the family up. How they're like, oh, the doctor said this is going to cause undue stress on the family beyond the patient care, and they don't care. And this is where it's bubbling up. This is where you're seeing it. So I guess we didn't get to the Beata talks to the lawyers. We'll get to that in a second, but this is a real clip that we kind of stumbled upon.
The sheriff's department is looking at building a case against the mom, Beata. Right. So they interviewed Jack. And he told her about it. And of course she's upset, but he was just truthful in his interview.
I think the point that he's making there, he doesn't need to yell it. Obviously,
no,
that's not the right way to go about it. But I think the words and the meaning behind those words do have validity in the fact that he understands that they already don't like you because they think that you were giving her the wrong treatment for months and years. You're already so. Every time that you ask them questions, well, what pain meds are you doing? What is this? And what time are you doing this? And what time is this? And what is she eating? And what is she sleeping? He can read the room, and he says they are going to think it's just confirming the Munchausen by proxy that you're too involved and you're obsessed and fixated on this. And that freaks them out more. And it's kind of backing up what they're saying. And did he say it in the wrong way? He shouldn't have said it like this, but this is what's coming out. That's what I believe. And in theory, I agree with him in, the way he carried it out. Not so much.
Well, yeah, he's clearly ramped up. He understands what's going on. He sees it.
He
gets it.
I would be ramped up too.
Yeah. And probably mom saw it too, to some degree, but she's like, you know what? Screw you. That's my child. I can ask any question I want to ask. She's mine. But that lack of her accepting the fact is they're building a criminal case on your ass. You need to shut it up.
Right. If not a criminal case, at least grounds to keep you separate from her.
Correct. So this recorded phone call between Beata and the lawyer, she's really pissed.
This witch today, liar, and this freaking asshole. I'm fighting for my child. How should I feel?
I can establish that you were just following doctor's protocol.
Let the attorneys handle this.
Yep.
Right? That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Right on here. I mean, there's nothing to show that you're making up a disease and that you're exaggerating her situation. Let the lawyers say those words. Let that resonate. we can beat this. You're whatever they think of you is not important because we have the doctor on our side. Yes, this is stressful right now. This is the hardest thing you're going to ever have to do in your life. But letting them get you is not going to help anything either.
Right. Quit letting them wind you up.
And maybe we'll skip this clip, but she collapses in this hearing.
Yeah. Yes.
And so we can see that the stresses of this are now exceeding her ability to deal. She can't deal with it.
The judge denies letting her have contact with.
Right. So everybody else is allowed to have contact.
Yeah.
Dad can go visit, a sister can go visit, or brother. But mom can't go.
From the time you came into All Children's, did your pain ever improve?
Without medication and without the proper physical therapy, it's like almost impossible to improve.
But she didn't. I'm sorry, Maya. You didn't answer the question. Did you feel your pain? And then she just went around and kind of dodged the question, to be honest.
I mean, she said no, not really. But I think that with certain conditions, I think that you have better days and you have worse days. So some days things probably weren't so bad. And then other days.
Do you want to show the clip about the social worker? Or you just want to talk about it?
I guess we could probably just talk about it because we got other clips we need to get to. That basically the social worker, Kathy Betty, whatever you can say her name, he just felt something was off immediately, and he Googled her and he found out that she had been arrested for child abuse. Now those charges were eventually dropped, but what was going on there?
Yeah, it's like now we got to worry about this because the hospital took away from their parental care.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened. We wouldn't have had this social worker here and let's go back to Mexico. This treatment is not an approved treatment in the US. So I think, a word to the wise to the people out there, if you're going to seek treatment and long-term treatment from a foreign hospital and you need to take that, maybe you need to move there. Then maybe they should have been living in Mexico. You know what I mean?
Something.
I don't know. So anyway, sorry, but
no, there's not a good solution, certainly.
Right. And throughout this whole documentary, we're weaving in and out of Maya's deposition. And I just wanted to play 4443 for us.
Yeah.
Just to give us a little flavor because we're not going to play all of her deposition in our video. So, but let's check this one out. Is there something you want to add to this or just let it play?
I just let it play. It's self-explanatory.
Great.
Kathy Beatty told me that I was going to go into a foster home. She told me that she was going to end up adopting me.
Whoa. That's when you have to hit the brakes. Some of the stuff can just come off as mean, right? It just comes off as mean. You're just talking mean about my mom, right? You're just being mean. Yep. But when you say I'm going to adopt you, that's when you have to slam on the brakes and go, what?
Yeah.
Now
crazy,
I see, man. Like you are. So you got the hospital that's against her. Now introduce the state representative, your caseworker, social worker, who has, I don't know, 20 other cases, 30 other cases to deal with.
Hard to say. Probably.
Hard to say. So why is she spending I guess she has to be there for the phone call? Like the caseworker has to be there.
Yeah, to monitor the call.
During the phone call and, and she redirect your conversation.
Right. Okay, well, quit talking in the background.
Right. And meanwhile, this lady is saying horrible stuff to Maya and saying, your mom's psycho and I'm going to adopt you. You're going to end up being my kid.
Right.
What?
You'd be better off with me and not your
this
own
woman's
mom.
Still out on the street? I'm scared for society. Okay, let's watch a little bit more and then we'll move on.
Were you hugging Maya?
I think that we provide comfort to a lot of kids.
Do you think Maya liked you before?
Yeah, and...
Do you remember being told why they wanted to take photos of you?
If you want to go to the court hearing, I have to do this.
She removed my clothes, held me down, took photos of me.
She did not want you to take pictures of her like that, did she?
She did not.
Yeah, let's strip your kid down to her skivvies.
In any other context, that's assault.
It is, and they arrest people for it all the time.
Could you imagine this?
Dude, I would be insane.
Who do you think you are? You're not just like what is this? One flew over the cuckoo's nest? If she says no, I don't want this, I refuse, that's it. That's it.
You're done. You're done.
You're done. You have to respect, especially children. If they're under 18, you cannot. And I feel like, this is sometimes I feel like one of the issues that bubbled up with me, throughout the years is how children really don't have any rights in a lot of scenarios. Substitute Maya for an adult.
Yeah, exactly.
And this same lady says she didn't want to have her pictures taken. She was like some 22-year-old woman. We held her down and we took pictures of her anyway.
Right. That's assault.
How is it any different? Or how is it not like more sensitive because it's a kid? You know what I mean?
Almost,
it should be even more of a crime to do that with someone without their permission. For them to accuse the mother of Munchausen by proxy, and then they have the audacity to abuse the kid in their own right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it is ungodly, unbelievable, and unforgivable, frankly, for what happens in these situations. And I'm glad they got deposed because this should have never happened.
Never. Should have never went this far. Ever. Kathy Beatty tries to get mom's phone privileges taken away. She wrote a message or whatever letter to the court.
Wild.
And of course, yeah, right.
That's wild.
It is. And then
there's and then there's other clips like Jack was recorded with a detective, and he tried to get Jack to turn on mom, but he didn't really. And Maya
that's
writes
another
the judge, right? Maya writes the judge, and
the detective. If you listen, anyone watching the documentary, pay attention to that clip because this detective really tried to drive a wedge between Jack and mom.
Right.
And it didn't work.
It all changes from here on out. Like, it becomes kind of a completely different story at this point. So buckle up. This is where the documentary really changes, and the tragedy I can't prepare you for it. There's like nothing I can say that would prepare you for this. So
the wheels fall off the wagon. Have already fell off the wagon. Now the wagon falls apart.
There was a hearing scheduled, a status conference.
And constitutionally, these parents have a right to treat their child like they see fit.
There you go. She said it all right then.
Why are we even here?
It is not up to this court or those people to decide what the proper diagnosis or treatment is. It's our parents. We shouldn't even be making that decision.
I'm right with this lawyer. Every word that she said has been spot on. That's pretty much how the status here court hearing goes. Doesn't go well, obviously. And the next clip is tragic.
It is.
We were supposed to go to a neighbor's for a birthday party. She goes, "Let me get up and wrap the present. I'm not going to go." And when we came home, her bedroom door was shut. Later that night, somebody was knocking on the door. It was her brother, Peter. He walked in the garage. There was a scream that I'll never forget. It's my name in Polish. He screamed that so loud, I knew.
She hung herself in the garage.
Yeah.
Wow. That's heavy. I did not see that coming. That was a major surprise in this documentary for me, to see that Mayada committed suicide by hanging herself in the garage. And She just couldn't take the stress anymore, I think.
Well, and
She just couldn't handle it.
That status hearing earlier that day, the judge wouldn't allow even mom to give Maya a hug. He said no.
Right.
That really crushed her. And Jack talked about that in the documentary All the Way Home. She talked about it just crushed her.
After the death of Maya's mother, Jack was allowed to take Maya to a specialist in Rhode Island. He makes a diagnosis.
Right.
So let's check that out.
He did an evaluation on her, which did confirm that she does have CRPS. Not too much longer after that, Maya was released to my custody.
Yeah.
87 days to 92 days. It was only 5 days later.
Yep.
God, it's so tragic.
Doesn't it just feel like though that they had this raging hard on for Beata?
It does. Oh, as I said, I think some of them were convinced that she was abusing Maya. They saw her, and like you said, they had preconceived notions of who she was, and you know, they were convinced. And was she overbearing? I believe she was overbearing. That doesn't make her a bad mom.
No.
It's just her style, her, you know, the way that she wants to know everything. You know, we can't argue with people about how they raise their kids. That was her way of dealing.
It's just a terrible result that the mom just felt like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I've done all I can do. And
So
gave
tragic.
up.
It's so sad.
It is. It really is.
It didn't need to happen, but the stress just took her over.
And she left a note too, just so everybody's aware.
Yeah.
That we didn't play that part, but she left a note for the Jack and the family. Anyway, go ahead. No,
that's a really important point. But I was going to say I wanted you to pick the next one. Pick the next clip.
Probably 109 when the investigative reporter gets involved. Her name is Daphne Chen. She ran across Maya's case and thought something doesn't sound right, so she starts investigating. Really hit the fan. She
All right.
really did.
Well, let's check out the fan.
Yeah.
In 2019, I was covering child welfare in Sarasota when I came across the case of the Kowalski family. And when I learned that Beata Kowalski had actually taken her life, I mean, it just hit me like a wall of bricks. And Dr. Smith was extremely firm that she had done nothing wrong. It was January 2019 when I hit publish on that piece about the Kowalski family. The calls started coming in and the email started coming in.
I realized it was so much bigger than what we had thought.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. He's not breathing. He barely has a pulse. We need to call 911.
I start hearing from more and more people who had gone to the doctor for help for their kids and then became the target of the system.
They found old and new brain bleeds, and that's when I met Sally Smith.
One thing that they all had in common was Dr. Sally Smith and Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital.
What did I say before? It wasn't the hospital. It was the personnel. It was the person, right? The system is only as strong as the weakest link. And we found the weakest link in Sally Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, some of the doctors I think there was they were complicit. They kind of went down this path because if they felt like that, you know, mom was being too belligerent, too overt, you know, that can lead into another thought process. Even though Beata wasn't trying to be that way, she was just trying to find a way for Maya to survive without living in this pain. That was her goal. So anyway, not to get back on that. Right. But this investigative reporter, it really opened the floodgates.
Well, if you can prove that Sally Smith is actually the one doing the abuse.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, Beata is affirmed, you know, she was right all along. This woman Sally Smith was wrong, and it's just wild.
Yeah, it is.
There's a new lawyer that comes in and says, you know what? Your mom documented everything. She recorded every phone call. She was shooting video constantly. And she's like, that's why we can sue.
Yep.
So because of what your mom did and who she was and how she recorded everything, we have enough material to demonstrate what was going on. So your mom helped.
Oh,
you know?
immensely. She wrote
Kind of from the grave. Like her footage was what gave them the ammunition.
Yeah, she had recorded stuff. She had just page after page after page of stuff written down. Every interaction she documented, everything.
The next clip that I want to show is Maya has a meltdown, kind of melts down with the lawyer, and I want to show. This is probably the pure emotion part of the documentary.
You indicated in paragraph 6 of your affidavit that you, quote, refuse to go to doctors or hospitals.
The last time I was in a hospital, I was medically abducted for 3 months. I remember hearing the nurses talk about me. She's a liar, don't believe anything she said. She's not in pain. That's what they would say to me. You have the audacity to ask me why I'm afraid of hospitals? My mom died and I will never get to see her again.
Wow.
Gut-wrenching. Raw emotion.
Raw emotion, and I think that it's got to come out. I'm actually, in a way, kind of happy that she had this moment because maybe it helped get it out.
I think so. Yeah, I'm glad.
Sometimes you just gotta let it out.
I hate the question and the way it affected her, but I'm glad she let it out.
Yeah, yeah. But the question is like, and she answered it perfectly. She started it calm. But as it progressed and they didn't ask her a new question, she's like, if you want to keep going into this, I will go into it.
And
how dare you ask me? Yeah. Like, I noticed you don't like hospitals.
Yeah, no.
You noticed that?
Really?
You read that? You read that in my statement, huh? Big surprise to you, huh? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think she unloaded perfectly. Even though it was extremely emotional, it probably is to this very day. I mean, it's as she's gotten older.
Sure. We got to check out the next clip, though, Jack. So you mentioned this earlier about how the hospital didn't believe that it was CRPS, but then they billed them for CRPS.
Crazy, man. I mean, what the hell are you doing? It's like, what?
And we found out that they billed him for 3 months treatment for CRPS. The exact same illness Sally Smith was telling the courts she did not have and that the parents had made up.
Dude, can you imagine just shooting yourself in the foot, the ankle, the leg, and then just moving? And that's exactly what Johns Hopkins University did. So they're prepping for trial. I mean, they're getting ready to walk into court any day now. They're actually getting ready to go to court this whatever day.
Right.
Lawyer calls and says we're ready to go to court. Yeah, we're ready to go to trial. However, the trial has been stayed.
You know, Johns Hopkins high-powered lawyers figured out a way to keep the case kick the can down again. That's what they do.
Yeah. They have their own counsel, and then they went out and hired this retired second circuit court from that region. He's retired, but now he's working for them, and somehow they got a stay. They put a stay in. There was a question about could the Kowalski ask for punitive damages. These lawyers for the hospital says, "Hey, this needs to just go away. They can't be allowed to add punitive." So it got dropped into the Second Circuit Court.
Well, then they really wanted to speak, right? The family really wanted to speak at trial, and it sounded like they were going to be able to, and then the judge didn't let them speak.
Yes, that's correct. He refused to let them talk.
And at the documentary's point, there have been some developments since the documentary. Is that right?
There has been, And I mean, if you want to place some of the ending,
sure, let's do that.
The case details at 140.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fair. I mean, she did settle, so
yeah, they did settle their part.
I probably wouldn't interview after I've settled out of court anyway. So
probably wasn't allowed to, but
right.
Yeah.
So the hospital says our primary priority at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital is always the safety and privacy of our patients and their families. Well, I think they violated that code. Therefore, we strictly follow privacy laws that limit the amount of information we can release regarding any particular case. So they hold to the rules. They're strict on those rules, but they didn't have anything to say about holding down a teenage girl and taking pictures against her will. They didn't mention that part. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, if you want. And then during the ending credits, there's, as I said, there's a number of families that are talking about their experiences with similar type cases.
Okay.
So our son Leo was born with a rare genetic disorder.
DHS called and said, hey, you have to bring him into our doctor.
Child abuse pediatrician came in and said there was no other explanation.
We went to the emergency room.
They never looked into his medical history.
And he said, yes, but since he's a baby and can't talk, we're just going to go with abuse, and walked away.
And I honestly had no idea what the consequences could be.
I spent 15 years in prison.
You're guilty until you prove your own innocence.
We never thought this ever would have happened to us.
The trauma, like it's forever.
I think the original settlement was $261 million. There were certain damages that were awarded to the family. The hospital filed a bunch of motions, of course. New trial was denied.
Sally Smith got off easy, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I haven't really looked to see what that settlement was.
Well, interesting documentary. Great pick, by the way, Jack. One of Jack's picks. So we might pick your documentary next. So put it in the comments, whichever one you feel like we need to see. We like to poke around and look at different types of documentaries, not always just murder and missing pregnant women, but it seems like we have a couple of those recently.
Well, yeah, yeah.
But we also cover other documentaries too, like medical malpractice and robberies and thievery and whodunit.
Yep.
So, thanks for joining us and coming along. But Jack, final thoughts on this one before we wrap up.
It's a real sad situation, sad case, as a lot of these are. This one was a bit unique. The money, I'm sure, has helped, but it'll never really fully heal that.
Of course not.
All that, but it certainly can help some quality of life, and certainly for care for Maya down the road in her life. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if it was the documentary's telling ability or if it was just the story in general, but what a shocking story. The documentary kept it moving, kept it relevant. As we said, there was depositions that were pretty much threaded throughout the whole documentary that we just don't have time to play it all. We kind of bounce around and play the ones we like.
Well, and you only get glimpses of these too, so some of the context may not be exact. So, but yeah. Definitely check it out. It's a great documentary. I certainly give it a 9.8 out of 10.
9.8. Oh, that's up there. Okay, that's on your short list of some of your better ones yet.
Absolutely.
Maybe someday we'll have to do our best of. We'll have to just pull clips of our favorite ones and do a best of show. That would be kind of fun.
It would.
Well, let's call this. Now we're in season 2, so this is season 2. We could do a best of season 1. Today's the first episode, season 2. We got a new look, got some new logo, ditching the old logo, getting new logos, putting fresh coat of paint on the podcast, on the channel. moving up in the world, calling it season 2. There you go. That's how I do it. Wave the magic pen.
Yep.
Season 2. There you go. See, now we're like veterans. Like, oh, we've been doing this for a while. We're in season 2 already.
Well, we've done several.
I want to thank everybody who's been with us, whether it's season 1, 2, or beyond. I really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. As maybe you have noticed, for the next few weeks, we're going to try to forego the premiere, and I'm just going to release these videos. As soon as I edit them, I will put them out for your consumption. Maybe give the members a day in advance. We'll see how that works. But that means we're still going to have lives on Mondays. So you want to join us for the live on Monday afternoon or evening, depending on your time zone. Come check us out on Monday evenings, Monday late afternoon, and we will be talking about this case, Take Care of Maya, coming up Monday. So join us then. But that's it for us from Documentary Club. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jack.
And we will see you on the next one.